So while there are many definitions of the word out there, this video is going to focus on the question, what does it mean to be triggered? And we're going to be looking at triggers from the perspective of childhood trauma and abuse, as well as the dysfunctional family. We're also going to be looking at from the perspective of our past versus our present. And a quick definition of a trigger is a reaction in the present that can be directly related to a past experience, in this case, childhood. Think of it like an over-the-top reaction to something in the present. So when we grow up in the dysfunctional family and abuse, our triggers are our body's memories of that childhood stress. And as we grow up into young adulthood, that stress gets imprinted during our emotional development, and we carry that into adulthood. That's hard, but there's some good news. If we work on our triggers, we can be happier, we can be more empowered, we can be balanced and focused, and most importantly, we can spend less time being upset. Trauma survivors lose a lot of time to their triggers. If that sounds worthwhile, here's the how-to. Number one, know what your triggers are. Spend some time journaling, perhaps creating a top 10 list of things that really upset you, perhaps feelings of being left out, and figure out what the triggers are. Number two is know where they come from in childhood. This may take some exploring in therapy. There's great literature resources on childhood stuff that are really helpful in figuring out. As a side note, many trauma survivors do not have memories of their childhoods, but your triggers are your body's memories, and there's clues there. So that's helpful. Number three is to practice the separation between your past versus your present. And that's an active thinking about how is the present different from the past. It tends to work very well if we feel the charge from the childhood upset. When we feel the childhood upset, it puts the present totally into perspective. Let's take a hypothetical. This is Kate. Kate is a trauma survivor. Kate works in an office building, and she gets an email from her boss, Jill, that reads, "Where is your project on the share drive? I don't see it." And Jill signs it with the dreaded and impersonal, "Please advise." So let's say that Kate is pretty triggered by this. Let's see what her reaction is. Well, at first, she anxiously checks the share drive 4 times, despite knowing where she put it and despite knowing it was completed. Kate then sends Jill an overly apologetic and over-explained email about where her project is. Kate then spends the rest of the day checking for a return email from Jill but doesn't get one. And then she goes home obsessing about the email and can't sleep. She wakes up upset the following day. And you may be asking, is that what it means to be triggered? Yes, that's what I'm saying about this triggering business. Here are some signs that will help you see when you're triggered. The first is having a big body reaction. This is a charge of anger, shame, disappointment, sadness, or heat. Next is dissociation. That's feeling out of your body, a little bit spacey, not grounded, shut down, perhaps stunned. Next is changes in language, where we're at a loss for words or we become overly intellectualized. Maybe we're swearing, our tone changes, maybe we become passive-aggressive. Next is forgetting good attributes. We forget good attributes of self, of others. This is usually negative. Next is similar to that one, which is all or nothing thinking. This is black and white thinking. This is using statements such as always or never in the belief that there is only one negative outcome. Next is use of a favorite coping strategy, things like substance abuse, internet, sex, food. These are compulsive and excessive behaviors. Next is righteousness, overly focused on being right, making moral judgments. And the last is use of metaphor. That's where we creatively explain things and say, you're a train wreck or I'm a train wreck. So let's unpack Kate's trigger. Let's see how all those signs played out. The first is Kate had a big body reaction. She became afraid, she became anxious, she had some shame going on, and that was a big weight in her body. Next, she mildly dissociated. She doubted herself. She was not focused, and she got into some tunnel vision about the email. Kate then got into some forgetting of good attributes. She forgot she's a good person. She forgot her project was completed and well done. She also had some changes in her language. Remember how she became overly apologetic to Jill? Saying I'm sorry is a default for Kate, which is a function of shame, and she overly explains things. She got into some all or nothing thinking where she might have said, this is all my fault. I always screw up. I should have known better. And lastly is she had a use of a negative coping strategy. That was the compulsive checking. She was seeking an external cue for self-worth from Jill. Let's look at Kate's trigger from a deeper perspective of past and present. Here is her past, and here is her present. In Kate's past, in her childhood, she had a critical, blaming, and shaming mother. Very reactive mother. She had an unprotective father who didn't protect her from mom. Both of Kate's parents used mood as a weapon, doing things like silent treatments. Kate became hypervigilant about making mistakes, which is something that kept her safe. And like many trauma survivors, she chased conditional love. But in her present, regarding the Jill's email thing, there are examples of just normal life challenges, examples of manageable difficulties. Like the Jill email is a pain in the ass at best, if that. Kate was not in danger, and there are normal social and relationship quirks. But the overlap between these two things is that Kate reacts in the present just as she did in childhood. That's her stuck place. And what that means is that she has the same core beliefs. She still believes that she's bad. She still has the same attachment issues where she gets into codependency and compliance. Her behaviors are the same, where she has those childhood survival strategies of perfection. And what all that means is that Kate spends a lot of her emotional energy avoiding being shamed at all cost. That's the charge from childhood that runs her present, and this is why it's important, the practice of separating between the past and the present, to get clear. Here's another way to look at it. Here's a bar graph, and let's just say the bar graph represents the Jill situation. Kate places all the upset, 100% of it, on the emotional charge of Jill's email. Kate thinks it's all about the present. She might be feeling that Jill is furious and that she's bad. But actually, most of the charge is from Kate's childhood, and it belongs there. Same bar graph, Jill situation, 80% of it is actually the emotional charge from childhood abuse. And the rest is 20% of just manageable stuff. If Kate was in therapy, she might basically come to the conclusion that this trigger is about my mother freaking out on me all the time. It's not about Jill. She's just my boss and she can get annoying. That's the practice of separating between the past and the present, which makes our present so much more clear and enjoyable. So, that 20%, that represents what we call the present piece. And for Kate, what that means is, as a boss, Jill is actually somebody who is slightly disorganized and rushes. But Kate doesn't tend to see that. She is nice, but she can get cranky. Kate also tends to not see that. Most importantly, maybe Jill gets triggered too. We tend to think it's only us. What all of the present piece means is that it's more manageable, non-threatening, and annoying quirks. But, and a big but here, for Kate, often being triggered is not a choice. So let's not get hard on ourselves when we do get triggered, but do commit to the fact that we can reclaim the present. So, understanding our triggers is a tricky business. Here are some reflective tips that you can ask when you notice that you're triggered. One is, does this present situation remind me of something from growing up? Another is, does the person I'm triggered by, in this case Jill, remind me of mom, dad, my siblings, or caretakers? And we can also ask, what do I do when I'm upset and why do I do it? Does it have a history or emotional function? For Kate, the compulsive checking for a return email that's not new for her. That's something she did in childhood to see if she was okay. So, remember the how-to from the beginning of this video? Let's plug those things in for Kate. The first piece was to know what your triggers are. Well, we know that Kate's triggers involve judgment, real or imagined, blame, real or imagined, and other people's negative moods. Those are some examples. Number 2, know where they come from in childhood. Well, we know in this hypothetical that Kate had a critical, abusive mother, she had a dismissive father, and she had moody parents. And those are the emotional charges from childhood that she's been able to figure out in therapy. Number 3, separating the past from the present. That's that 80%. And when we think about the emotional charge from childhood, which for Kate means being abused and shamed as a child, and she had to be perfect to survive emotionally. And that 20%, which belongs on the present, is she might come to the realization that Jill is just my boss. I'm not in trouble. I got this. So, some of you might be asking, what would have been a healthy response to Jill in the initial email exchange? Well, if Kate wasn't so triggered or she was working on her triggers, a very simple and basic way to respond to Jill is, "Hi, Jill. Here it is. Thanks, Kate." That response is diplomatic, professional. Kate has nothing to prove to Jill, and Kate is grounded in the truth. So, here are some takeaways. You've been seeing this little cloud throughout the video and represent your childhood triggers, but honor your survival strategies and triggers. They kept us safer, but no longer serve us or work. If you really related to Kate and her situation, there are many trauma survivors who grew up exactly like Kate and react in similar ways. The childhood trauma stuff is predictable. In the present, very important here, the present is always better than being powerless like we were in the past. But the present can be incredibly hard. The Kate situation thing is a really mild example, but sometimes the present can mean like a divorce. And while YouTube is a great place for education, always explore finding a good trained trauma therapist if possible. Just don't have it stop at YouTube. Well, thanks guys. I hope the video was helpful to you. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. When you hit the notification bell, you'll get notice of my other videos. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos on triggering. And I hope it was helpful, and also that there's going to be more info and answers in the description of this video. Take care and thanks.